The hallways of Westfield Academy gleamed under bright lights, polished floors reflecting the morning sun that streamed through tall windows. It was unlike any school Alex had ever seen. Walking through these corridors felt like stepping into another world, one where everything was pristine, perfect, and completely foreign to him. Alex clutched his worn backpack tighter as he made his way to the main office. At 17, he had already lived in 4 different foster homes. The latest one was decent enough. Mrs. Rivera was kind and never made him feel like a burden, unlike some of the others. But no place had ever truly felt like home. Music had always been his escape. 6 years ago, a social worker had brought a small electronic keyboard to the group home where Alex was staying. "Someone donated this," she'd said with a smile. "Does anyone want to learn?" While the other kids quickly lost interest, Alex found himself drawn to the keys, teaching himself to play from YouTube videos and free online lessons at the library. Now, as he stood in the gleaming main office of Westfield Academy, he could hardly believe he was here. The scholarship had seemed impossible, a full ride to one of the most prestigious private schools in the state, known especially for its music program. He'd recorded his audition piece on Mrs. Rivera's old phone, playing a Chopin nocturne on the community center piano. When the acceptance letter came, she had cried more than he did. "You must be Alexander," said a stern-looking woman behind the desk. She didn't smile as she handed him his schedule. "The scholarship student." The way she said it made it clear this wasn't a compliment. "First class begins in 10 minutes. Don't be late." Alex nodded and turned to leave, studying his schedule. Advanced placement classes filled nearly every slot. The scholarship committee had seen his public school transcripts and decided he could handle the rigor. But it was the last period of the day that made his heart race. Advanced music theory and composition. His first day passed in a blur. In every classroom he felt the stares and whispers. His second-hand uniform, while clean and pressed, Mrs. Rivera had made sure of that, was slightly faded compared to everyone else's. During lunch, he sat alone watching as students gathered in tight groups, laughing and talking about summer vacations in Europe or family trips to ski resorts. "That's the foster kid," he overheard someone whisper. "Charity case. My dad's on the board, and he says the school needed a diversity scholarship for tax purposes." Alex kept his eyes on his food, pretending not to hear. He'd faced worse in public school. At least here nobody threatened to beat him up. They just acted like he was invisible, which was almost preferable. When the final bell rang, Alex nearly ran to the music department. This was why he was here. This was what mattered. The music wing of Westfield Academy was even more impressive than the rest of the school. Practice rooms lined the hallways, each containing a baby grand piano. A large performance hall stood at the center, its doors currently closed for renovations. Bulletin boards displayed photos of alumni who had gone on to Juilliard, Curtis Institute, and professional orchestras around the world. "Can I help you?" asked a tall man in a tailored suit, his gray hair perfectly combed. "I'm looking for advanced music theory and composition," Alex replied. "I'm new." The man looked down at him, one eyebrow slightly raised. You must be the scholarship student. I'm Dr. Phillips, head of the music department." He didn't offer to shake hands. "Class is in room 108, but before you go..." Dr. Phillips paused, studying Alex with critical eyes. "What instrument do you play?" "Piano," Alex answered, standing a little straighter. Whatever else happened here, he knew he belonged when he played. "Mainly classical, but I like jazz too." "I see. Self-taught, correct? Your application mentioned no formal training." The question stung, but Alex nodded. "Yes, sir. But I practice every day, at least 3 hours when I can." Dr. Phillips made a small humming sound. "Well, you should know that the spring music competition is the highlight of our year. Most students here have been training since they were 4 or 5 years old with private instructors. The competition is quite rigorous." The warning was clear. "Don't get your hopes up." "I understand," Alex said quietly. "Room 108 is down the hall on your right," Dr. Phillips said, already turning away. "Don't be late." The music theory classroom was different from the others. Instead of desks, there were tables arranged in a semicircle. A grand piano stood at the front, and the walls were lined with framed sheet music, original compositions by former students. Alex realized as he took a seat at the empty table nearest the door. The other students filed in, their conversations dropping to whispers when they noticed him. A group of 3 boys in perfectly pressed uniforms took the table furthest from him, occasionally glancing his way and smirking. Their teacher, a younger man with round glasses, entered last. "Welcome to Advanced Music Theory and Composition. I'm Mr. Winters." His eyes scanned the room, pausing briefly on Alex. "I see we have a new face this year, Mr. Winters." Unlike Dr. Phillips, seemed neither cold nor particularly welcoming, just neutral. He launched into an overview of the course, explaining that their final project would be an original composition to be performed at the spring competition. The winner receives a recommendation letter to the conservatory of their choice. Mr. Winters explained. "Last year's winner, Thomas Chen, is now studying at the Royal College of Music in London." A boy with perfectly styled hair, one from the group of 3, raised his hand. "Mr. Winters, will we be assigned practice rooms for the semester? I'd like to reserve one with the Steinway if possible." "Practice room assignments will be posted tomorrow, William," Mr. Winters answered. "And as usual, seniority and past performance will be considered in the assignments." William shot a smug look toward Alex, who pretended not to notice. When class ended, Alex lingered, waiting until the other students had left before approaching Mr. Winters. "Excuse me, sir. I was wondering about practice rooms," he began. "I don't have a piano at home, so I was hoping I could use one of the school's pianos for practice." Mr. Winters looked up from his papers. "You're Alexander, correct? The scholarship student?" Alex nodded, tired of that being his only identity but trying not to show it. "I'll see what I can do," Mr. Winters said. "Most practice rooms are already assigned to returning students, but there might be something available. Check the board tomorrow." "Thank you, sir." As Alex turned to leave, Mr. Winters called after him. "Alexander?" "The spring competition. It's quite competitive. Students here have been preparing for years." It was the second warning he'd received today. Alex forced a smile. "I understand. I just want a chance." The next morning, Alex arrived early, heading straight to the music department to check the practice room assignments. A small crowd of students had already gathered around the bulletin board, some looking pleased, others disappointed. Alex waited until they dispersed before approaching. His finger ran down the list of names until he found his at the very bottom. Alexander K., Practice Room 13. Hours 3:30, 5 p.m. weekdays. Room 13. He hadn't noticed it yesterday. As the other students began arriving for morning classes, Alex slipped down the hallway counting room numbers. The main practice rooms were numbered 1 through 12, all along the main corridor with glass panels in their doors. Room 13 was different. It required going down a small side hallway, past what looked like a storage area. The door was solid wood with no window, unlike the others. A small brass 13 hung slightly crooked on the door. Curious, Alex tried the handle. Locked. He would have to wait until after school. The day dragged on endlessly. In each class, Alex felt more and more like an intruder. In economics, they discussed summer internships at parents' investment firms. In literature, they referenced books he'd never had the chance to read. In history, they casually mentioned family vacations to historical sites he'd only seen in pictures. By the time the final bell rang, Alex was desperate for the solace of a piano, any piano. He practically ran to practice room 13, key in hand. The lock turned with some difficulty, as if rarely used. As he pushed open the door, a musty smell greeted him. The room was smaller than the others he had glimpsed, with no window and only a single flickering overhead light. But there, against the wall, stood a piano, an old upright with a dark wood finish. Nothing like the gleaming grands in the other rooms. Still, Alex felt a surge of excitement. He set down his backpack and pulled out the bench. The piano looked antique but well-crafted. As he sat down and placed his fingers on the keys, however, his heart sank. The first chord he played sounded wrong, discordant and out of tune. He tried a scale, finding that several keys stuck when pressed, while others made almost no sound at all. For nearly 20 minutes, Alex examined the piano, opening the top to look inside. He wasn't an expert, but even he could see that something wasn't right. Some of the hammers were misaligned and several strings looked unusually loose. As he was looking, the door opened behind him. Alex turned to find William and his 2 friends standing there watching him with amused expressions. "Enjoying your premium practice space?" William asked, his voice dripping with mock concern. "Dr. Phillips wanted to make sure you got a special piano, one that matches your experience level." The boys laughed, and Alex suddenly understood. This wasn't a mistake or bad luck. This was deliberate. "We're in rooms 1, 2, and 3, said one of William's friends, with the Steinways. "You know, for serious musicians." "Don't worry, though," William added with a smirk. "That piano has character, just like having no formal training gives you character." They left, their laughter echoing down the hallway. Alex turned back to the piano, his hands trembling slightly, not from fear but from anger and determination. He pressed a key that worked reasonably well, then another, finding the notes that responded properly. Even with its problems, he could make music with this piano. He would make music with it. Outside the practice room, Alex heard voices passing by, some slowing down to listen. He recognized the snickers and whispers. They were waiting for him to give up. Instead, he straightened his back and began to play, working around the broken keys, adjusting to the uneven action of the hammers. The sound wasn't beautiful, not yet. But it would be. Somehow he would make it work, because the spring competition wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about proving that he belonged here, broken piano and all. For the next week, Alex spent every minute of his assigned practice time in room 13, getting to know the broken piano. He made a mental map of which keys worked properly, which ones stuck and which produced no sound at all. The middle C had a delayed response. Press it and the note would sound a half-second later. The F sharp above it barely made any sound. The sustain pedal worked, but only if pressed all the way to the floor with considerable force. It wasn't just a matter of some keys being out of tune. This piano had been deliberately sabotaged. Each day after practice, Alex would return to Mrs. Rivera's apartment with aching fingers. The uneven action of the keys required more strength on some notes than others, making even simple pieces physically painful to play. "How's the fancy school treating you?" Mrs. Rivera asked one evening as she set a plate of rice and beans in front of him. Her small apartment was nothing like the mansions his classmates probably lived in, but it was clean and warm, with colorful curtains and the smell of home cooking. "It's fine," Alex lied, forcing a smile. "The classes are hard, but I'm keeping up." "And the music program? Is it everything you hoped?" Alex hesitated. Mrs. Rivera had been so proud when he got the scholarship. The last thing he wanted was to worry her. "The pianos are different from what I'm used to," he said finally, "but I'm adapting." After dinner, he spread his homework across the small kitchen table. Along with practicing piano, he had to keep up with the demanding coursework. Most of his classmates had attended elite private schools their entire lives, while Alex was trying to catch up after years in underfunded public schools. By midnight, his eyes were burning from reading, but he had finished everything except his music theory assignment. Mr. Winters had asked them to analyze a Bach fugue, identifying the subject, countersubject, and various contrapuntal techniques. Despite his exhaustion, Alex found himself enjoying the puzzle-like nature of the assignment. Music made sense to him in a way that little else did. The next day at school, William and his friends were waiting by Alex's locker. "How's practice room 13?" William asked, leaning against the metal door so Alex couldn't open it. "I hear it's haunted. They say the ghost of failed musicians plays that piano at night." His friends laughed on cue. "It's fine," Alex said, keeping his voice neutral. He'd learned long ago that showing anger only encouraged bullies. "Really? Because I walked by yesterday and it sounded like someone was torturing a cat in there." William's smile was all teeth. "Maybe you should stick to something more your speed. I hear the cafeteria is hiring dishwashers." The boys walked away laughing. Alex took a deep breath, opened his locker, and gathered his books for class. Their words stung, but he refused to let them see it. In music theory class, Mr. Winters was handing back their fugue analyses. When he reached Alex, he paused. "Interesting work, Alexander," he said, placing the paper on his desk. "See me after class." Alex's stomach tightened. Had he completely misunderstood the assignment? When he looked down at his paper, however, he saw a large A+ written in red ink at the top. After class, Alex approached Mr. Winters's desk with a mixture of confusion and hope. "You wanted to see me, sir?" Mr. Winters looked up, studying Alex over his glasses. "Your analysis of Bach's fugue was exceptional. Most students identify the obvious elements, but you noticed patterns that many miss." "Thank you," Alex said, surprised by the praise. "I enjoy fugues. The way the voices work together but stay independent. It's like a conversation where everyone has something important to say." Mr. Winter's expression softened slightly. That's an insightful way of looking at it. He hesitated, then added, "How are you finding your practice room?" Alex tensed. Should he complain? Would it make any difference or just mark him as a troublemaker? "It's challenging," he said carefully. "The piano has some issues." "Issues?" Mr. Winters raised an eyebrow. "Several keys don't work properly. Some don't sound at all, others stick. The action is uneven." Once Alex started listing the problems, he found it hard to stop. The middle register is mostly okay, but the upper and lower ranges are unpredictable. "And the whole instrument is out of tune." Mr. Winters frowned. "That doesn't sound right. The school maintains all its instruments regularly. Maybe this one was overlooked? It's in room 13, sort of hidden away. I'll look into it," Mr. Winters promised. "In the meantime, I may be able to arrange for you to use one of the classroom pianos after school occasionally." "Thank you, sir," Alex said, feeling a spark of hope for the first time in days. That afternoon, Alex headed to practice room 13 as usual. To his surprise, Mr. Winters was already there, the door open, bending over the old upright piano with the top propped up. "Alexander," Mr. Winters straightened when he saw him. "I wanted to see this piano for myself." Alex waited nervously as Mr. Winters pressed various keys, his frown deepening with each note. "This is unacceptable," he said finally. "This instrument hasn't just been neglected, it's been tampered with. Look here." He pointed inside the piano. "Several hammers have been deliberately misaligned, and someone has loosened these strings." Alex felt a strange mixture of vindication and disappointment. He'd been right about the sabotage, but hearing it confirmed made the situation feel even more hopeless. "Can it be fixed?" he asked. Mr. Winters sighed. "Yes, but it would require a professional technician. And frankly, it would be cheaper to replace it entirely." He closed the piano top. "I'll speak with Dr. Phillips about this immediately." "Thank you," Alex said, though he wasn't sure what good it would do. If Dr. Phillips had assigned him this room in the first place, would he really care about the piano's condition? The next day, Alex was called to Dr. Phillips's office during lunch. The music director was sitting behind a massive desk, his expression unreadable as Alex entered. "Mr. Winters tells me you've been complaining about your practice room," Dr. Phillips said without preamble. "Not complaining, sir," Alex corrected carefully. "I just mentioned that the piano seems to have some issues." Mr. Winters examined it and believes it was deliberately damaged. Dr. Phillips's tone made it clear he found this hard to believe. "Do you have any idea who might have done such a thing?" The question felt like a trap. Accuse William and his friends without proof and he'd only make his situation worse. "No, sir. I don't know." Dr. Phillips studied him for a long moment. "Very well. Unfortunately, the school doesn't have the budget to repair or replace pianos mid-year. All funds are allocated well in advance, of course," Alex thought bitterly. There was always money for new sports equipment or fancy events, but not for the one thing that mattered to him. "However," Dr. Phillips continued, "Mr. Winters has convinced me to allow you limited access to practice room 7 when it's not being used by its assigned student. You can use it Monday and Wednesday evenings from 5 to 6:30 and Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 Alex's heart leaped. A real piano, even for just a few hours a week, would make all the difference. "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me yet," Dr. Phillips warned. "This arrangement is temporary and conditional on your academic performance. If your grades slip even slightly, you'll return to room 13 exclusively. Is that clear?" "Yes, sir. Perfectly clear." As Alex left the office, he spotted William and his friends lurking in the hallway. From their expressions, they had already heard about the new arrangement. "Went crying to the teachers, did you?" William said, stepping into Alex's path.
Typical scholarship case.
"Can't handle a little adversity." Alex tried to step around him, but William moved to block him again. "The spring competition is in 12 weeks, William continued. "Some of us have been preparing our pieces for months already. What are you going to play?" "Chopsticks?" The boys laughed, but Alex noticed something beneath William's mockery, a hint of genuine worry. Was William actually concerned that Alex might be a real competitor? "I haven't decided yet," Alex said, meeting William's eyes directly for the first time. "But I'm looking forward to the challenge." William's smile faltered for just a second before he recovered. "Well, enjoy your charity piano time. Maybe they'll give you a charity trophy, too." Later that day, Alex went to practice room 7 for the first time. It was twice the size of room 13, with a window overlooking the school gardens and, most importantly, a beautiful baby grand piano that gleamed under the overhead lights. Nervously, Alex sat down and placed his fingers on the keys. The first chord he played was so clear, so perfectly in tune that tears sprang to his eyes. He had almost forgotten what a proper piano should sound like. For the next hour and a half, he lost himself in music, playing pieces he had struggled with on the broken piano. Everything was easier here. The keys responded evenly, the pedals worked smoothly, and every note rang true. By the time Mrs. Rivera picked him up that evening, Alex was exhausted but happier than he'd been in weeks. The limited time on a good piano would make a difference, but he knew it wouldn't be enough. Most students had daily access to excellent instruments, while he would still be spending most of his practice time fighting with the broken piano in room 13. As they drove home, Alex made a decision. He wouldn't abandon room 13 and its broken piano. Instead, he would use both pianos, the good one to learn new pieces and refine his technique, and the broken one to develop adaptability and resilience. If he could make music sound good on a sabotaged piano, how much better would he sound on a proper instrument? That night, after finishing his homework, Alex sketched out a practice plan in his notebook. He would divide his pieces into sections and work on different aspects depending on which piano he was using. For the upcoming competition, he would choose a piece that showcased his strengths while minimizing the impact of the broken piano's weaknesses. It wouldn't be easy, but nothing in his life ever had been. And for the first time since arriving at Westfield Academy, Alex felt like he might actually have a chance. 2 weeks into his new practice schedule, Alex felt both exhausted and exhilarated. Each minute on the good piano in room 7 was precious, and he used the time to learn new sections of his competition piece, Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor. It was ambitious, perhaps too ambitious, but it spoke to something deep inside him. The way it transformed from gentle melody to thunderous passion matched his own journey from uncertainty to determination. On the broken piano in room 13, he practiced differently. There he couldn't focus on making the music sound beautiful. That was impossible. Instead, he developed workarounds for each problem. If a key didn't work, he found alternative fingerings. If the pedal stuck, he adjusted his foot pressure constantly. It was like trying to run a race while wearing shoes that didn't match. Frustrating, but forcing him to develop unusual skills. One Tuesday afternoon, as Alex was battling with a particularly difficult passage on the broken piano, he heard a soft knock at the door. He stopped playing, surprised. "Nobody ever came to room 13, come in," he called, half expecting William or his friends with some new taunt. Instead, a girl he vaguely recognized from his English class peeked in. She had dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail and wore wire-rimmed glasses. "Hi," she said, glancing around the small room with curiosity. "I'm Lily. We have English together." "Alex," he replied, though she probably already knew that. Everyone seemed to know who the scholarship kid was. "I know this is weird, but I've been walking by your practice room for weeks and—" She paused, seeming to gather her courage. "What they did to that piano is awful." Alex tensed. "What do you mean?" Lily stepped fully into the room, closing the door behind her. "My mom's a piano technician. I grew up around pianos. That one," she nodded toward the upright, "has been deliberately sabotaged. I heard you playing and I could tell you were working around dead keys and pedal issues." Alex wasn't sure how to respond. Was this some kind of trick? "I already know," he said carefully. "Mr. Winters confirmed it." Lily looked relieved. "Oh good, I wasn't sure if you realized. Some of the damage is pretty subtle unless you know what to listen for." She hesitated again. "I could help you fix it. Not completely, it needs a professional overhaul, but I could show you how to make some basic adjustments." "Why would you help me?" Alex asked, unable to keep the suspicion from his voice. No one at Westfield had offered genuine help before. "Because what they did isn't fair," Lily said simply. "And because you're good. Really good, actually. I've heard you when you get a clean run on a passage, and—" She shrugged. "You deserve better than this." Alex studied her face, looking for any sign of deception. He saw only sincerity and perhaps a hint of shyness. "Okay," he said finally. "What can we do?" Lily smiled, setting her backpack on the floor. "First, let me see exactly what we're working with." For the next hour, Lily showed Alex the inside of the piano. pointing out where hammers had been misaligned and strings had been loosened. Some of the damage was obvious even to his untrained eye, while other problems were more subtle. "Here's the good news," Lily said, straightening up. "About 30% of the issues can be fixed without special tools. Another 40% we can improve with a few basic supplies from the hardware store. The rest would need professional attention." "You really know a lot about pianos," Alex said, impressed. Lily smiled. "Like I said, my mom's a technician. I grew up watching her work." Her smile faded. "She wanted me to be a pianist, but I'm not very good. I'm better at fixing instruments than playing them." "That's a talent too," Alex pointed out. "An important one." The next day, Lily returned with a small toolkit hidden in her backpack, a few Allen wrenches, a tuning lever borrowed from her mother's collection, and some other items Alex didn't recognize. "We need to be careful," she warned as she adjusted a hammer. "If Dr. Phillips catches us, we could get in trouble for tampering with school property." Even though we're fixing it?" "Even though we're fixing it," she confirmed. "To be honest, I think he's the one who had it sabotaged in the first place." Alex had suspected as much, but hearing someone else say it made it more real. "Why would he do that?" Lily concentrated on tightening a string before answering. "The scholarship program is new. From what I've heard, the school board pushed it through despite opposition from some faculty members. Dr. Phillips was against it from the start. He doesn't think—" She stopped abruptly. "He doesn't think kids like me belong here." Alex finished for her. Lily looked up, her expression apologetic. "It's not right. And it's not everyone. Mr. Winters is different. He judges people on their merits." Over the next week, Alex and Lily worked together every afternoon, making small improvements to the piano. Each day, a few more keys would begin working properly. The middle register started to sound almost normal, though the highest and lowest notes remained problematic. As they worked, they talked. Alex learned that Lily lived with her mother in a small apartment above the piano repair shop they owned. Like him, she didn't quite fit in at Westfield. Her family wasn't wealthy, but her mother had scraped together enough for tuition because of the school's academic reputation. "Mom wants me to become a doctor," Lily explained as she adjusted a pedal mechanism. "That's why she works so hard to keep me here. But I'd rather go into instrument repair like her." "Why not do both?" Alex suggested. "Be a doctor who fixes pianos on the weekends." Lily laughed, a bright sound in the small, dusty room. "Maybe I could specialize in musicians' injuries, piano-related tendinitis and such." As February turned to March, the piano in room 13 became increasingly playable. It would never match the grand pianos in the other practice rooms. But Alex could now practice his competition piece without having to work around too many broken keys. Even more valuable than the improved piano was having someone who believed in him. Lily often stayed to listen to him practice, offering suggestions or just quiet encouragement. "You should come hear me play on the good piano sometime," Alex said one day as they were packing up. Lily smiled. "I'd like that." The following Monday, Lily slipped into practice room 7 during Alex's evening session. He was midway through the most challenging section of the ballade, his fingers flying across the keys as the music built to its thunderous climax. When he finished, he looked up to find her staring at him, eyes wide behind her glasses. "That was—" She seemed at a loss for words. "Alex, you're going to win the competition." He shook his head, though her confidence warmed him. "William and the others have been practicing for years with private teachers. I'm just a kid who taught himself on a keyboard." "That's what makes you different," Lily insisted. "You don't play like someone who's been trained to follow rules. You play like someone who discovered music on their own and fell in love with it." As the competition grew closer, Alex split his practice time between the two pianos. The broken one in room 13, despite their repairs, still presented challenges that forced him to adapt. The good one in room 7 let him polish his performance to a high shine. 6 weeks before the competition, Dr. Phillips announced that all participants would need to submit their selection for approval. "The piece must demonstrate appropriate technical skill while remaining within your capabilities," he explained to the class. "Approval forms are due by Friday." That evening in practice room 7, Alex played through his Chopin ballade one more time, focusing on the sections that still gave him trouble. As the final notes faded, he heard slow clapping from the doorway. William stood there, flanked by his friends. "Very ambitious," he said, his voice dripping with false admiration. Chopin's first ballad. Professionals struggle with that piece. Alex said nothing, gathering his sheet music. I'm playing Rachmaninoff, William continued, clearly expecting Alex to be impressed. Dr. Phillips says my interpretation shows remarkable maturity. That's great, Alex said neutrally. He tried to move past them, but William blocked his path. You know, I almost respect your audacity, William said, his tone hardening. But you're embarrassing yourself. Someone with your background should know their limitations. My background? Alex felt a flare of anger. You know what I mean. No formal training, no proper guidance. Just some charity case who got lucky with a scholarship. Move, please, Alex said, working to keep his voice steady. I'm doing you a favor, William insisted. Choose something simpler. When you crash and burn playing Chopin, everyone will remember. If you play something basic, at least you won't make a complete fool of yourself. Before Alex could respond, another voice cut in. Is there a problem here? All four boys turned to see Mr. Winters standing in the hallway, his expression severe. No problem, sir, William said smoothly. We were just discussing competition pieces. I see. Well, Alexander's practice time isn't over for another 20 minutes. Perhaps you could continue this discussion elsewhere? William's smile never faltered. Of course, sir. We were just leaving. As he passed Alex, he whispered, Enjoy your charity piano time. After they left, Mr. Winters lingered in the doorway. Everything all right? Alex nodded, though he was still shaken by the confrontation. What will you be playing for the competition? Mr. Winters asked. Chopin's Ballad No. 1, Alex replied, half expecting another lecture about choosing something more appropriate. Instead, Mr. Winters nodded thoughtfully. A challenging piece, but I've heard you working on it. You've made remarkable progress. Thank you, sir. Alexander, Mr. Winters hesitated. I want you to know that not everyone at this school shares Dr. Phillips's views. Some of us believe talent can emerge from anywhere, not just privileged backgrounds. The words hung in the air between them. It was the closest anyone on the faculty had come to acknowledging the bias Alex faced daily. I appreciate that. Sir? After Mr. Winters left, Alex sat back at the piano, thinking about William's warning and Mr. Winters' encouragement. He placed his fingers on the keys and began to play again, letting the music wash away his doubts. Later that night, as he lay in bed in Mrs. Rivera's apartment, Alex made his decision. He would play the Chopin not despite his background, but because of it. Every struggle, every makeshift solution, every hour spent coaxing music from a broken piano, these weren't disadvantages. They were the very things that made his playing unique. The competition was 4 weeks away. It was time to transform all his challenges into strengths. The final month before the competition passed in a blur of practice, schoolwork, and too little sleep. Alex had never pushed himself so hard. Every morning he woke at 5 a.m. to review music theory before school. Every evening he practiced until Mrs. Rivera gently reminded him that other people in the building needed to sleep. His hands ached constantly. The uneven action of the broken piano in room 13 strained his fingers in ways that proper instruments didn't, forcing him to develop unusual strength in some fingers while maintaining delicacy in others. When he switched to the good piano in room 7, the difference was both a relief and a challenge. His touch had to adjust completely. You're working too hard, Lily told him one afternoon as she listened to him practice. You need to rest sometimes. Alex shook his head, starting the difficult passage again. I can't. The others have had years of advantages. I've got weeks to catch up. Lily sighed but didn't argue. Instead, she brought him cookies her mother had baked and reminded him to stretch his hands between practice sessions. 2 weeks before the competition, disaster struck. Alex arrived at practice room 7 for his Monday evening session to find a note taped to the door. Due to scheduling conflicts, all secondary practice room assignments are canceled until after the spring concert. Please return to your primary assigned rooms. Dr. Phillips. Alex stood staring at the note, his heart sinking. Just when the Chopin was coming together, when he finally felt confident playing it on a proper instrument, his access had been revoked. That can't be a coincidence, Lily said when he told her the next day. The competition is in 2 weeks. Do you think Dr. Phillips found out how much I've improved? Alex asked. Lily nodded. William's father is on the board of trustees. He probably complained. Back in room 13, Alex faced his broken piano with renewed determination. He and Lily had improved it considerably, but it was still a far cry from the beautiful grand he'd been practicing on. The highest notes were still unreliable, and the pedal continued to stick at unpredictable moments. "I'll just have to adapt," he said, more to himself than to Lily. "I've done it before." Each day, Alex adjusted his interpretation to work with the piano's limitations. Where the highest notes failed, he emphasized the middle voice. Where the pedal stuck, he used his hands to create the legato the pedal should have provided. It wasn't ideal, but it was the only choice he had. 1 week before the competition, Alex stayed later than usual in room 13, working through the most difficult section of the ballade over and over. The janitor had to ask him twice to leave so he could lock up the building. As Alex walked through the darkened halls, he heard music coming from the main performance hall, the venue where the competition would be held. The doors were propped open, light spilling out into the corridor. Curious, he peered inside. William sat at the grand piano on stage playing his Rachmaninoff piece while Dr. Phillips stood nearby, occasionally offering suggestions. The piece was impressive, full of dramatic flourishes and technical fireworks that showcased William's years of training. "Excellent," Dr. Phillips said when William finished. "A few small adjustments to the tempo in the middle section, but otherwise competition ready." "Thank you, sir," William replied, beaming at the praise. "Do you think the judges will appreciate the difficulty?" "Certainly. The technical challenges alone will put you ahead of most competitors. And having the opportunity to practice on the actual competition piano gives you an additional advantage." Alex backed away from the door, his chest tight. Not only was William playing a showpiece designed to impress judges, he was getting private coaching from Dr. Phillips on the competition piano itself, an opportunity no other student had been offered. The next day, Alex arrived at school to find a crowd gathered around the bulletin board where the competition schedule had been posted. "Tough luck," he overheard someone say. "Going first is the worst spot." Pushing through the crowd, Alex scanned the list. There it was at the very top. Alexander K.B. Chopin, Ballade No. 1 in G minor, Opern 23. The very first performer, at 9 a.m. sharp. Every competition had to have someone go first, but it was widely considered the most difficult position. The judges would have nothing to compare your performance against, and they tended to score more conservatively early in the day. William, Alex noticed, had been given the coveted final spot, the one judges would remember best when deliberating. "This is ridiculous," Lily said when she saw the schedule. "They're stacking everything against you. First the piano, then canceling your practice time, and now this." "It doesn't matter," Alex said, though his voice lacked conviction. "I just need to play well enough that they can't ignore me." The week before the competition was the longest of Alex's life. He practiced every possible moment, pushing himself beyond exhaustion. Even Mrs. Rivera noticed his strain. "You look terrible," she said bluntly one night at dinner, which he was mostly pushing around his plate. "This competition, is it worth making yourself sick over?" Alex looked up from his untouched food. "I have to prove I belong there," he said quietly. "Not just for me, for kids like me who never get chances like this." Mrs. Rivera's expression softened. "Just remember that your worth isn't decided by a panel of judges, mijo. I've heard you play. You already have a gift, whether they recognize it or not." The night before the competition, Alex couldn't sleep. He lay awake, mentally playing through the ballade, imagining his fingers on the keys, hearing the music in his head. By morning, his eyes were burning with fatigue, but his mind was surprisingly clear. Mrs. Rivera drove him to school early, adjusting his borrowed suit jacket before he got out of the car. "Remember," she began. "I know," Alex interrupted with a small smile. "My worth isn't decided by judges." "That's right," she squeezed his hand. "But also remember that I'm very, very proud of you, no matter what happens in there." The performance hall was already buzzing with activity when Alex arrived. Parents in expensive clothes chatted with teachers while students in formal wear nervously reviewed sheet music or quietly practiced finger movements. Alex made his way backstage, where competitors were gathering. William and his friends were huddled together, looking confident in perfectly tailored suits. When they spotted Alex, William smirked. "Well, look who's here. Ready to go first?" Alex said nothing, focusing on keeping his breathing steady. "I heard you practicing yesterday. William continued, his voice just low enough that nearby teachers couldn't hear. Sounded rough. Those high notes in the coda are really giving you trouble, aren't they? A flash of anger shot through Alex. William must have been spying on him in room 13, but before he could respond, Mr. Winters appeared, clapping his hands for attention. Competitors, please take your seats in the first 2 rows. Parents and guests are being seated now. Alexander, as our first performer, please stay backstage until you're announced. The other students filed out, William giving Alex one last mocking smile as he passed. Soon Alex was alone in the wings, listening as the hall filled with people. Through a gap in the curtain, he could see the gleaming grand piano on stage, lit by overhead spots. It was nothing like the broken upright he'd been practicing on. Would he be able to adjust in time? Mr. Winters appeared at his side. 5 minutes, Alexander. How are you feeling? Nervous, Alex admitted. And the piano. It's different from what I've been practicing on. Mr. Winters nodded sympathetically. I know. But remember, a good musician can adapt to any instrument. He hesitated, then added in a lower voice, I want you to know that I've spoken to one of the guest judges, an old conservatory friend of mine. I've made sure he knows to judge solely on the performance, not on other factors. Alex looked up surprised. Was Mr. Winters saying what he thought he was saying? Thank you, sir. Don't thank me. Just play like I know you can. Mr. Winters checked his watch. It's time. Remember to take a moment to settle at the piano before you begin. Center yourself. Alex nodded, his mouth suddenly dry. Ladies and gentlemen, came Dr. Phillips' voice from the stage. Welcome to Westfield Academy's annual spring music competition. Our first performer this morning is Alexander Keller, playing Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor. There was polite applause as Alex walked onto the stage. The lights were brighter than he expected, making it hard to see the audience. He gave a small bow, then took his seat at the piano. The keys gleamed white and perfect before him, so different from the yellowed, uneven keys of room 13's piano. He placed his hands in his lap, taking a deep breath as Mr. Winters had advised. In that moment, a strange calm settled over him. All the obstacles placed in his path, the broken piano, the limited practice time, the early performance slot, suddenly seemed less important. They had tried to ensure his failure, but in doing so, they had made him stronger. Alex placed his fingers on the keys and began to play. The opening notes of the ballade floated out across the hall, gentle and questioning. Alex felt the immediate difference in the piano's action, smooth and responsive, unlike the stubborn resistance of room 13's instrument. For a moment, the ease of it almost threw him off balance, like stepping onto an escalator when expecting stairs. But then his hours of practice took over. The countless adaptations he'd made for broken keys and sticky pedals had forced him to develop extraordinary control. On this perfect instrument, that control translated into nuance and expression that years of conventional training couldn't teach. As the piece built from its contemplative beginning toward its passionate climax, Alex lost himself in the music. The challenges of the past months, the doubts and fears all melted away. There was only Chopin's masterpiece and his own interpretation of it, an interpretation shaped by struggle and resilience. When he reached the coda, the section William had mockingly mentioned, his fingers flew across the keys with newfound freedom. The high notes that had been unreliable on his practice piano rang out clear and true, building to the thunderous conclusion. The final chord hung in the air for a long moment before the hall erupted in applause. Through the stage lights, Alex could just make out the audience rising to their feet, not the polite standing ovation given to all performers, but an immediate, spontaneous reaction to something extraordinary. As he stood to bow, Alex caught sight of Mrs. Rivera in the back, tears streaming down her face as she clapped. Next to her stood Lily, beaming with pride, and in that moment Alex knew. Whatever the judges decided, he had already won. After his performance, Alex was ushered back to the competitors' waiting area. His hands were shaking, not from nerves anymore, but from the release of months of tension. He had done it. Whatever happened next, he had played better than he ever had before. The other students looked at him differently now. The dismissive smirks were gone, replaced by wary respect or outright surprise. A few even offered quiet congratulations as he took his seat. William, however, seemed more agitated than ever. He paced at the back of the room, occasionally stopping to flex his fingers or mutter something to his friends. One by one, the other competitors took their turns on stage. Each performance was polished and technically impressive. These were, after all, students who had been training with private instructors since they were small children. But as Alex listened, he realized something that both surprised and encouraged him. While their playing was nearly perfect, many performances lacked the emotional depth that came from his own struggles. When the final competitor before William had finished, Dr. Phillips called a short intermission. Students and audience members spilled into the hallway, talking excitedly about the performances so far. Lily found Alex near the water fountain. "You were amazing," she said, her eyes bright with excitement. "Everyone's talking about your performance." "Really?" Alex couldn't help but smile. "Yes. I overheard one of the judges asking Mr. Winters where you studied before coming to Westfield. They couldn't believe you were self-taught." Before Alex could respond, Mrs. Rivera appeared, pulling him into a tight hug. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. "So proud." When she released him, Alex was surprised to see tears in her eyes. "Was I really that good?" he asked. "Better," she said simply. "You made everyone feel something. That's what real music does." As the intermission ended, Alex returned to his seat in the competitors section. William was the only student left to perform, and as the final competitor, all eyes would be on him. Dr. Phillips introduced him with undisguised pride. "Our final performer today is William Harrington, playing Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor." William walked confidently to the piano, his posture perfect as he took his seat. The hall fell silent in anticipation. His performance was exactly as Alex expected, technically brilliant and carefully rehearsed. William had clearly spent years mastering the difficult piece, and it showed in every perfectly executed passage. The audience responded with enthusiasm, applauding loudly as he took his bow. As William left the stage, Dr. Phillips returned to the microphone. "Thank you to all our talented performers. The judges will now deliberate and announce the winners shortly. Please enjoy refreshments in the lobby during this time." The next 30 minutes were the longest of Alex's life. He wandered the crowded lobby, accepting congratulations from strangers who had been moved by his playing, all while trying not to think about the judges' deliberations happening behind closed doors. "No matter what happens," Lily reminded him, appearing at his side with a cup of punch, "you played beautifully. Everyone knows it." Finally, a bell rang, signaling that the audience should return to the hall. Alex's heart pounded as he took his seat, trying to manage his hopes. Winning would mean a recommendation letter to the conservatory of his choice, a door opening to a future he had barely dared to imagine. Dr. Phillips took the stage again, holding an envelope. His expression was unreadable as he adjusted the microphone. "After careful consideration, our judges have selected this year's winners," he announced. "I will now announce them in reverse order." The audience quieted as Dr. Phillips opened the envelope. Third place goes to Thomas Chen for his performance of Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2. A polite round of applause followed as Thomas, a senior, walked to the stage to receive his certificate. Second place, Dr. Phillips continued, his voice revealing nothing, is awarded to William Harrington for his performance of Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor. A murmur ran through the crowd. William, who had clearly expected to win, froze for a moment before rising stiffly from his seat. His face was a mask of controlled anger as he accepted his certificate and returned to his seat without making eye contact with anyone. Alex's heart was hammering, so hard he could barely hear Dr. Phillips's next words. And first place in this year's spring music competition, along with the recommendation letter to the conservatory of the winner's choice, is awarded to... The pause seemed to stretch forever. Alexander Keller, for his performance of Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor. The hall erupted in applause. Alex sat stunned, unable to move until Lily nudged him gently. "Go," she whispered, her face split by a wide grin. "You won." On shaky legs, Alex made his way to the stage. Dr. Phillips was holding a trophy and certificate, his expression professionally pleasant, but his eyes cold. As Alex reached for the awards, Dr. Phillips leaned close and whispered, "The judges overruled me. This doesn't change anything, but it did change everything." As Alex turned to face the applauding audience, he caught sight of Mrs. Rivera in the back, openly crying with joy. Mr. Winters was clapping with unmistakable pride, and the other students, even those who had ignored or mocked him all year, were looking at him with new respect. The reception afterward was a whirlwind of congratulations. Parents he had never met shook his hand. Several younger students asked if he might give them tips sometime. A photographer from the local newspaper took his picture beside the trophy. Through it all, Alex felt strangely calm. The validation was nice, but he realized it wasn't why he played. He played because music gave voice to everything he couldn't say. About being a foster kid, about feeling out of place, about fighting to belong. As the crowd thinned, Alex found himself face to face with William. For a moment, they just looked at each other, neither speaking. Finally, William broke the silence. "How did you do it? On that broken piano?" The question seemed genuine, the arrogance momentarily gone from his voice. "I adapted," Alex said simply. "When you don't have everything handed to you, you learn to work with what you've got." William nodded slowly, as if considering this new concept. "You played differently than anyone I've ever heard. Not technically perfect, but like I meant it," Alex finished for him. "Because I did." William held out his hand. "Congratulations," he said stiffly but sincerely. As they shook hands, something shifted between them. Not friendship. Exactly, but a kind of respect. Later that evening, as Alex sat with Mrs. Rivera and Lily at a small celebration dinner at their favorite diner, Mr. Winters stopped by their table. "I hope I'm not interrupting," he said, "but I wanted to congratulate you properly. Alexander." "Thank you, sir," Alex said, still not quite believing the events of the day. "And thank you for everything you did to help me," Mr. Winters smiled. "I didn't do much. Just tried to level the playing field a bit." He placed a folder on the table. "These are applications for summer music programs. Many offer full scholarships for talented students. I took the liberty of requesting them for you." As Mr. Winters left, Lily leaned forward excitedly. "This is just the beginning for you, isn't it?" Alex nodded, looking at the folder of opportunities he hadn't known existed a few hours ago. "I think it might be." The following Monday, Alex returned to school to find Dr. Phillips waiting for him outside practice room 13. "I've been instructed by the board to reassign your practice room," he said without preamble, his voice clipped. "Apparently some parents complained about the inequitable distribution of resources after your win became public knowledge." Alex wondered if William's father had been among those parents. It would be an unexpected turn of events if so. "You'll be using practice room 5 from now on," Dr. Phillips continued, handing him a key. "It has a proper grand piano. I trust you'll take good care of it." "I will," Alex promised. "But actually, if it's all the same to you, I'd like to keep using room 13 sometimes too." Dr. Phillips looked at him in genuine surprise. "Why would you want that broken thing when you could use a grand?" Alex thought about everything the broken piano had taught him, about perseverance, about finding workarounds, about making beauty despite limitations. "It taught me things no perfect piano ever could," he said simply. Dr. Phillips studied him for a long moment. "You're a strange young man, Alexander. But perhaps—" He stopped, seeming to reconsider whatever he had been about to say. "Perhaps you have earned your place here after all." It wasn't an apology, but coming from Dr. Phillips, it was something close to it. Later that day, Alex showed Lily his new practice room with its beautiful grand piano gleaming under the lights. "You should have seen Dr. Phillips's face when I said I wanted to keep using the broken piano too." Alex laughed as he ran his fingers over the pristine keys. Lily shook her head, smiling. "Only you would win a competition and then ask to keep practicing on a sabotaged piano." "Not just practicing," Alex corrected her. "I'm going to fix it properly. With your help, if you're willing. Then I'm going to ask Mr. Winters if we can donate it to the community center where I used to play. They don't have any piano at all." Lily's smile widened. "I'd like that." As spring turned to summer, Alex found himself busier than ever. The recommendation letter from his competition win had opened doors he never imagined. He'd been accepted to a prestigious summer program at the state university, with a full scholarship. 3 different conservatories had already expressed interest in him for after graduation. But perhaps the most meaningful change was at Westfield itself. Younger students, especially those on scholarships or from less privileged backgrounds, sought him out for advice and encouragement. The broken piano in room 13, now fully repaired thanks to Alex and Lily's efforts, had become something of a legend among the music students. "Did they really give you a broken piano to practice on?" a wide-eyed freshman asked him one day. "They did," Alex confirmed. "But here's the thing. Sometimes what looks like an obstacle can actually be your greatest teacher." And as he returned to practice room 13 one last time before the school year ended, running his fingers over the now functional keys of the old upright piano, Alex knew this was true. The piano that had been meant to ensure his failure had instead been the key to his success. Sometimes the most beautiful music comes from the most unexpected places.